Where you'll lose it on your computer somewhere.
Welcome, and thank you so much for your attendance tonight. My name is Jan Hemming. I'm the chair of the Oakcrest Neighborhood Council. And on behalf of the council and other local community councils, I want to express my special thanks to our talented panel of experts who will address us tonight, and Bonneville School and officials and staff who made it possible for us to meet here. Why was this forum organized? Because we love our neighborhood, and we also love the families and children and all individuals who live here. We want everyone to thrive in our community, in a healthy environment. Lately, we've witnessed some troubling events around our schools at night and on weekends. A hate graffiti crime at Bonneville that got media attention. Lewdness in front of Bonneville and East High School. Fierce water balloon attacks on cars near the school, resulting in angry confrontations. A barrage of fireworks at Bonneville and East High throughout July. The complete obstruction of 19th East in front of Bonneville that a young woman's car struck after midnight. Short track racing and tire burning in East High parking lots. Dumpster fires at East. Flowers and plants removed from private gardens. And other acts that start with groups of teens gathering at our schools and then fanning out in the community to break fences, shut off utility boxes, throw eggs at cars and homes, or target specific homeowners by ringing doorbells and pounding on front doors throughout the night. Just below 12th East, a local church suffered $50,000 in damages caused by East High teens. Nefarious activities have also been reported at Clayton Junior High. We know social media plays a role in these activities. If these events are ignored and not addressed, they will embolden those who want to see just how far they can push things. Over the weekend, a parent who is a respected adolescent psychiatrist told me that if a community doesn't set standards of behavior, then others will step into the void and create their own rules. We strive to build a safe and welcoming neighborhood where respect for all people and all property prevails. Tonight, we begin a search for proactive and preventative solutions. We hope this forum inspires a better way forward. We want our young people to understand the difference between a prank and criminal or destructive behavior. I would now like to turn the time over to our moderator, Jim Gilkey, a member of the Oakcrest Neighborhood Council Board, who will introduce our speakers. Jim.
Just stand right here. Here's all of them, just each one of them as they take their turn. Just do it all now. Okay. Hi, as Jan said, my name is Jim Gilkey. We have 4 speakers tonight. The first one of those is standing here in the blue, Salt Lake City Councilman Dan Dugan. Councilman Dugan is serving in his second 4-year term with the Salt Lake City Council, representing District 6, which includes the position of chair currently. He serves on the board of the Utah League of Cities and Towns and the Salt Lake County Council of Governments, and is a 20-year veteran of the U.S. Navy. Our next speaker will be Dr. Taylor Leeson. Dr. Leeson, rather, is the Executive Director of School Leadership and Performance for Salt Lake City School District, ensuring that all city schools meet the high standards of quality and strong performance. He is a college administrator and professor from Mississippi at Delta State and is currently a member of the School Superintendent Elizabeth Grant's Executive Cabinet. Next will be School Board President Tracy J. Miller. Tracy Miller has served in the Jordan School District Board for 7 years and now leads as president. She has held leadership positions with the Utah PTA and the Utah School Boards Association. This summer, the Jordan School District joined a nationwide lawsuit against social media companies for their exploitative and addictive policies towards teens. And finally, our 4th speaker will be Detective Sam Fallows. Detective Fallows is one of 3 community liaison officers with the Salt Lake City Police Department, serving districts 5, 6, and 7. He has been in law enforcement for 15 years, 11 of which were in a patrol capacity. He has also served on the Salt Lake Police Bike and Park Squad. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to Councilman Dugan. Thank you.
Good evening. Jan, first of all, I need to thank Jan for setting up this meeting tonight. I appreciate all the effort that you've done as the outgoing chair of the community council. So I appreciate that very much. And I also want to thank Dr. Taylor, Tracy, Detective Fallows for their time and their wisdom and their thoughts tonight. I appreciate you being here tonight. And to all of you, thank you for joining this conversation and your willingness to help this neighborhood. A lot of times I will start with why we're here, but also say that I think we all, because we're here, we all share a vision of what a neighborhood should look like. A neighborhood that is safe, friendly, and welcoming to all. And over the recent months, we've had a number of incidents that have kind of shattered that vision. And as a community, I look forward to the conversation we can have to try to solve those problems. We're lucky that none of these incidents that Jan mentioned had any serious physical injury, but they did have a lot of property damage. And have kind of given the community a black eye amongst themselves and kind of angst anytime you're driving around. And I appreciate the conversation here, but I also want to say that we have this shared vision. So always remember that shared vision, because when we talk about different avenues of to solve a problem, we may differ in those, but go back to the vision, because we all want the same thing. We just may have different paths to get there. And there may be some that are better than others. But I appreciate all the dialogue here. Let's come out with open ears, and so we can bring the thoughts together and come up with some type of solution. So I think I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Taylor. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. We can relax. This is an informal conversation about how can we arrive at solutions to make our environment safer. As a member of the Salt Lake City School District, we have a community-based approach. When schools are not in operation, we want them to be available to community. We want playgrounds to be available to community as green spaces, as those places where we can engage through the community. Now, what do? The school district has several things in place, and I have to be very careful and walk a tight line here, because I have to talk about our safety procedures without spreading too much information, because we have new legislation that kind of restricts what we can talk about in terms of our safety processes. But I can say we secure access points, we have surveillance, and we try to make sure that the area is well lit. Could we be restrictive? Could we place fences around schools and do things like that? Yes, we could, but would that be inclusive and be reflective of being a good community partner? We feel like that would not be. But if there are things that we can do to work in partnership with the community to make the space more safe or safer, more engaging, and if we could do things to help the community, we will do so. Rest assured that we're here to work in partnership with you. But a school, and let me do this reminder, a school is an educational institution. It's not a regulatory agency. We do not have any type of jurisdiction in the neighborhood. We work in conjunction with partners by providing information and providing surveillance if we're able to. So I want to make sure that I stress that. Can we host forums? Can we do things like this? Yes, you see that. The school has been made available. If we need to do so on a continuing basis, we have no problem with doing that. But in terms of can we regulate who's on campus and who's not on campus after hours, that becomes highly difficult. We have to work in conjunction with our law enforcement agencies in order to have that partnership come to the forefront. And that's not passing the buck to law enforcement. That's us staying within our respective roles. Okay. I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you have. I'll be standing up on the stage or sitting on the stage, so feel free, and I'm gonna turn it over to Tracy.
Thank you. I'm Tracy Miller, and I'm president of the school board for Jordan School District. And appreciate the invitation to come here and speak tonight. Jan reached out to me after hearing about some of the proactive things that we're doing in our district to try to combat the problems that we are seeing. And it was mentioned in the introduction, the lawsuit that we have going. And I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about the lawsuit, because I think it'll help you understand kind of what some of the underlying problems are of things that we're seeing in our schools. We as a district have sued the top 5 social media companies. It's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube. It's a multi-district lawsuit, so there are hundreds of school districts across the nation that have joined in this lawsuit. And we decided as a board to join the lawsuit because we have seen a big uptick in mental health problems and behavioral problems in our schools over the last many years. And a lot of the research is coming out now that there is a tie between social media use and this increase in mental health issues. And so we joined the lawsuit, and then later was chosen to be one of the lead plaintiffs in that lawsuit. So there's hundreds of districts part of this. The plaintiffs got to choose 6 to be the lead, and we were chosen to be a lead plaintiff in this lawsuit. So that means that we potentially could go to trial. We're heavily involved right now in the discovery phase and in providing information to the legal team about things that are happening in our district. And the reason we were chosen is because as a district, we have been on the forefront of bringing in resources into our schools to help with the mental health problems that we are experiencing. This started for us back in 2017. Sadly, we had a suicide cluster at one of our high schools. We lost 5 kids that year. These are our kids. We can't let this happen. And so as a district, we invited national experts to come. We're looking, what can we do? How can we help these kids? How can we, keep these problems from getting worse and kind of stop the contagion that was going on out there. And as a result, we put a whole structure in place in our school system. We have psychologists at every school. We've increased the number of counselors. We've increased social workers. We've added behavior specialists to help. We've added more, vice principals to help with the behavior problems so our teachers can focus on teaching. And because of all of that we had already put into this, and I think it's one of the reasons we got chosen, because we've spent millions of dollars, and not your taxpayer dollars, that are being spent to combat this problem. And we're hoping by suing the social media companies that we can recoup some of those dollars that we've spent. But more importantly, we're hoping to change the way that they are running their algorithms, the way that they're targeting our children is one of the things we're really hoping for. So let me just give you a little bit of data. Has anyone heard of the book Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt? A couple of people have. Okay, it's a great book. I recommend it. It's new. It just came out a couple of years ago. There's a lot of research in there that is tying youth mental health problems to the introduction of the smartphone. So does anyone know what year the very first iPhone came out? 2007, you're good. And the very first Android smartphone came out a year later, 2008. By about 2010, we, kind of have started giving them to our kids. And by 2015, we've got about 11% of our 8-year-olds have a smartphone in 2015. And about 77% of our 17-year-olds. By 2020, 30% of our 8-year-olds had smartphones, and we're at about 97% of our 17-year-olds had smartphones. And when you start looking at, all of the mental health statistics, right around through 2010, all the surveys, and looking at clinical depression and anxiety, everything starts spiking like around 2010. And going up from there. And then just, as we survey kids and how do they feel about themselves, a lot of the self-esteem starts declining around that time also. Another interesting survey is, do you feel like you have a future? And more kids are just saying, I don't really feel like I have a future. So that's concerning, what is going on with our kids? And what can we do to kind of help reverse that trend? So as schools, we're doing all that we can as far as, kind of bringing in resources. We have a panorama survey, and that's statewide. The kids are asked to participate in, and that's optional. Parents have to allow them to participate in it. But that's one tool that, helps us kind of see what the early warning signs are. Because really the best way to prevent the behavior is to see the early warning signs and get in there and help our kids before things escalate. And when it comes to behavior issues, we've always had them, right? We had issues when we were teenagers too. That's always been going on. But what we've just seen lately is just that it's just been compounded. And I think phones and social media have a lot to do with that it just kind of compounded the behaviors. Used to, there would be a fight at the flagpole after school. Well, now, kids are in first period are saying, oh, there's a fight at the vending machine right after second period. And all the kids show up, and 50 of them all have their phones because they're all catching the action to put on their phones. It's compounded the problems that we're having. Things spread fast. We've had multiple incidences of threats that were false alarms, and there was one last year. It was a school in Seattle, and part of the school's name had one word that was also in one of our school's names, and kids see that, and it spread through social media like wildfire, and all of a sudden all these kids at one of our schools are checking out because they saw this on social media, and it wasn't even the right school, it wasn't even the right name, but it was a similar name, and so it just spreads. Things like that. There's obviously a lot more bullying because of social media. It's a lot easier to bully people online, and we're seeing a lot of that too. And then I'm sure you've heard of the TikTok challenges. There was a bathroom one a couple years ago that got out of control with TikTok challenges, and everyone pulling stuff off of school bathroom walls. And so anyway, those are just some of the things that we're seeing that's kind of exasperated by the existence of social media and spreading. Now, I do just want to say though that we have a lot of great kids too. I don't want to lose sight of that too. Just this morning I was out at a sunrise flag ceremony at one of our middle schools that they were doing to remember 9/11 and teach those kids about, what happened at 9/11 and honor the victims. And I thought that there's a lot of great things going on too. And I think the best thing that we can do for our kids is for them to have a sense of belonging. If they feel like they belong to the school system, they belong to the community, that's what our mental health experts are telling us the best thing that we can do to decrease some of these rates is have kids that really feel like they have a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging in the community. So you had a question back there.
I missed something.
Yeah, so the specific charge is negligence and public nuisance. Those are the legal charges in it. And it's asking for two things: monetary damages, and then also just a change in their algorithms and the way they target youth. That's the school district lawsuit. There's also a state lawsuit that you might have heard about that because there was maybe an injunction or something that happened yesterday on that one. So the state lawsuit's a little more expansive. It's trying to add parental controls. It's allowing teenagers to sue social media companies. There's several different aspects to the state one. So Okay, thank you. We'll turn the time over to Sergeant Fellows.
I'll take the motion, but I'm taking place detectives. Yeah, just up it. All right, well, I'm to take the Sam Fellows. Some of you might know me from like the Crest Community Council meetings. I definitely recognize the faces here, which is awesome. Appreciate y'all being here tonight. So yeah, we'll definitely take any questions you guys have, and I'm sure you'll have some for me. So I want to just kind of talk just a little bit about what the police department is doing to kind of help address these issues. And then, like I said, just any questions when we're up there, just shoot them in. So I'm going to give 2 updates on the 2 major incidents that we had over the last year-ish. Just crazy how much time has flown, but over the last little while. So the Bonneville Elementary one, we all know about that. We all know about the hate speech that was graffitied on the school and all those things. I think one of the really positive things that came out of that was the community response to it, as in addition, like with the police department and the community and everybody that came together and, you know, making the kids feel safe. That was awesome. On the police side of it though, we were able to, you know, get suspects identified, charges have been filed on that case. That case on our end has been, not closed in the sense that it's done, but just that we've done everything we can and sent it to the courts. So on the police side of it, we've squared that one away. Obviously, because these are involving juveniles, there's not much information I'm gonna be able to give other than that on these cases specific, but I'll give you what I can, but try and answer any questions I can. On the church in Gilmore Park, so we had quite a few cases over there. We had about 7 or 8 cases that I was able to find, maybe even 9 different cases, and all those, just to give you guys an idea of how it kind of works, you know, patrol responds to a call for service, they take the report, it goes into our system, it gets kicked to a detective queue. And depending on the information that's in the report, you know, we try and link cases so that our detectives can see what's going on. And that's what happened with this one. So we were able to link all the cases together, put together the, you know, suspect information, all that kind of stuff. So on that case, we also were able to ID suspects, and charges have been filed on that case as well. So our detective that was over that case, he's a personal friend of mine, but so I was able to kind of talk to him and get his insight on like how that went down. And yeah, it was just a lot of cases to go through and to sift through and get all the information. So he spent a lot of man hours putting together a really solid case for that. And then the other side of it was when we're filing charges, especially on vandalism and things like that, we have to have official estimates to file charges. So you can't just go to the district attorney and say, I think this is worth $15,000. It has to be an official paperwork that says this is worth $15,000, right? And that's how we file charges. That's how we file differentiation between misdemeanor charges, felony charges, things like that. So in order for us to actually file any charges whatsoever, we have to have that information. So that was some of what took a little bit of time on those cases, not to mention, like, again, just 8 total cases that we had to put everything together, videos, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, he was able to do all that and get all that squared away. And there was a little bit of miscommunication between, we were trying to contact church headquarters compared to local clergy, and just a little bit of miscommunication, but we got it all worked out, got all the estimates we needed. Charges have been filed on that case as well. So just talk about those 2 cases to start. And then some of the other things we've been doing in the area, specific to here, to Bonneville Elementary. So we've had quite a bit of success with having the police camera that you guys have probably seen. It's gone now because they had to pull it for some other things. But the camera has been pretty successful. So I've got a plan where I'm working with the sergeant who's over our cameras for next summer to start getting a plan in place where we can try and have a camera here. Like, I don't want to make any promises because they're really hard to keep, but to try and have one here like 90% of the summer on that south side of the school there. So we can try and just keep that mitigated and tapped down. We're also expanding like so they're called our, I don't even know what it stands for. They're just called SLIC. I can't remember what it stands for exactly, but they're our like intelligence unit essentially. And they're expanding that to where we eventually want to get to a point, we're not there yet, but we want to get to a point where we actually have employees that it probably won't be 24/7, but they'll actually be monitoring the cameras somewhat real time. If we have like a robbery or even just any in progress crime, they can log in and start looking at all the different cameras. So we're working on like expanding those kinds of programs and things like that to help with some of the issues. And then So we got the camera up here. I've worked really closely with Jan, talk about 2 or 3 times a week, probably Jan, right? At least between email and talking. So we've, I've tried to stay in really close communication with Jan and as you guys kind of funnel everything to her and she funnels it to me, which is awesome. So, something else I have planned, I know that fireworks are a major issue as well with some of the juvenile issues up here. So a thought that I had, and I've spoken to my captain about it, and it's pretty much pre-approved at this point. We just kind of have to work out some of the details, is I want to get a couple of overtime officers up in this area we're gonna start with the 31st, the 4th, and the 24th. And we'll have 2 cars, and their main job overtime is just gonna literally be to respond to fireworks calls up here. They'll just sit up here at the school or wherever I want them to and have their lights on, and then when a call comes out, they'll be right here in the area, they'll go out, because I want to cover everything near the mountains. That's the biggest thing. And to give you an idea of why, when we have these calls where we get a lot of fireworks calls in one night, and I'm talking like, we can sometimes get like 50 calls in one, like in a couple hour period. So there's no way, it's hard to differentiate everything, right? So a lot of times, our watch command will just, if it's not on a far east side where it's close to a mountain, we're just not gonna be able to respond to every one of them, or really any of them, truthfully. So I want to mitigate that, because this year there was a little bit of miscommunication. We didn't have some officers that went up to the high east side on some of the fireworks calls. I'm trying to mitigate that completely to where if you have overtime, that's just their job. They don't have to worry about calls for service from patrol. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Their job is just go snag fireworks calls. So that's another thing that I'm working on that has basically been pre-approved at this point. And then lastly, I'm just also working with the SRO, the school resource officers. So we just recently really supplemented our school resource officer program, where they brought in like a bunch more positions to help just with some of the juvenile issues that we have been having throughout the city. And so Clayton Middle School now has a full-time SRO. I believe it's full-time. He might have a couple other schools, but most of his time will be at Clayton Middle School. East High has always had one, but East High will have a full-time school resource officer. So I'll be working pretty closely with both of them as well on the issues that come to me, and maybe having them do something of some kind of like an assembly or something where they talk about like, hey, these are some of the issues we're seeing out in the community. If this is what you and your friends are doing, these are some of the repercussions you can suffer if you don't stop, just stuff like that. Like, we'll try and get ahead of it. So, so that's some of the stuff that we're doing at the police department, trying to like just mitigate and get ahead of and help with some of these issues. Obviously, and I think you all know this, we're never ever going to stop like every single incident. It's just not going to happen, right? I was just thinking about the vastness of Salt Lake City as a city itself, and we kind of live in our neighborhoods. I don't know if we think about it, but like this city is like mountain to mountain and bountiful to Salt Lake. Like, it is a ginormous city, and so it even baffles me sometimes, like being a police officer here. So this year, just to give an idea, we've already responded to 212,000 calls for service this year already. So, and we're not even like, we just got through our busy season for sure, but we're at 212,000. I'm sure we're going to hit close to 300, if not over 300 this year. So we have to do things in this department based on statistics, because we just don't have the manpower, the time, and all those things to just be everywhere at once. And so it's really important. What I really need from my communities, and I preach this a ton, but I just want to drive it home tonight, is I need, like, even the petty little stupid calls that are just like, this was really annoying. Someone stole my bike, or someone stole, whatever, or someone vandalized my mailbox or something, and you're just like, whatever, I don't want to deal with it. Please report it, because for a couple reasons. Number one, it puts a pin in the map for me as your community liaison officer to help kind of drive resources, because that's one of my jobs, is try and like connect the community with resources as much as I can. And then I also can drive some of the resources that we have. So for instance, if we have a ton of bike thefts all within like a half-mile radius of this elementary school, which I'm sure happens all the time, right? But if I look at the stats, that's not what it shows. It does not show about the bike thefts. It shows like 1 or 2, So if it's happening all the time, I have to be able to go to my commander and say, hey, we've had 10 bike thefts in the last 2 weeks in Yellowcrest. And I can be authorized to go and talk to like a property crimes unit or a bike unit, and we can set up like a bait bike operation, things like that, to make arrests and do things. But I can't do that unless I have numbers to back it up, because again, we're staggered, right? And so we have to go off of what we can see, and I can only see what you guys tell us. And so I just want to drive that home. It's super important to report those little things, and I can understand the frustration side of like waiting around for an officer. I don't want you to even do that. You can just go online to slcpd.com and just file an online report. We just kind of revamped the reporting systems. There's a few little things to like, they're ironing out some of the kinks, but it's supposed to be a much better system. And again, and this is more for like, if you don't have any suspect info, you didn't suffer any like physical injury, things like that. They're for like lower level harassment vandalism, those types of calls. That puts the pin on the map for me, and then, you know, you guys, you know, I pull the stats for the neighborhood every month, like I always do, and I'll see an increase, like, oh, look at this, we've had a huge increase, and I'll start looking into that. That's what my job is. So, that would just be what I want to end with, is just drive that home, is the importance of reporting actual crime. You know, the biggest way, the hardest way, the biggest thing we feel about crime is the perception of crime, right? And so I grew up in Kearns, Utah, where it's pretty rough, and we didn't call the cops unless someone was dead or dying. And, you know, I had Mike stolen like so many times from me, but that's how the culture was over there, right? And so like, you didn't think anything of it. So, and I'm not saying don't call the police, man. What I'm saying is it's the perception of crime, right? To us, that was not a big deal. I did not care. To you, it feels like a big deal, as it should. And so and especially like, you know, I lost like a $50 mountain bike. Up here, we're losing like $6,000 e-bikes, you know? So like, that's not a small thing. So those things need to be reported so we can get ahead of it, work on it. And just for the mere fact of like just having accurate reporting so that we can more funding, more officers, all these things come from our crime stats for the most part, right? So if we're not showing any, you know, if we're just showing decrease, which is great, and we want to see that for sure, but we want it to be real, right? We want it to be not just because people are not reporting. So I'll just leave with that, like, and then obviously we'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you.
You want to shoot over now?
Yeah, I'll invite you guys to take the stage, please. We're gonna do some question and answer. Jan has given me some decorum rules. And I don't think I'm too worried about, but nevertheless, no profanity, intimidation, or threats to others in the room. Please be respectful for our speakers and everyone in the audience. Please be succinct. And I'll call on you 1 to 10. I'll bring a microphone. I believe these folks have a microphone on the table.
I've got another one.
Oh, we've got it.
We're just gonna do a little bit of technology right now because can someone climb up there? Cause I'm not very good at stairs. I put it at the end where Sam is. Yeah. Point it down.
Let you adjust your phone,
Down, yeah.
Yeah, that's just how I like it. I'm not in it.
That's it. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna help Jim. We're gonna get another microphone.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for being, I really appreciate all the work that's being done around the property vandalism and the nuisance of fireworks. But as a mom, who got a child that goes to the school and identifies as a kid who was targeted by many of the hate crime symbols that would get all this. I'd like to know, other than charges were filed, we can't talk about it. What do you say to a family who was targeted by hate crimes? Because I feel like that's another level of crime beyond the nuisance of fireworks and property damage. And I'll tell you, there aren't many of us in this community that do have kids that represent those identities, and we're close. Those of us who do, we're close. And it feels like to us, those are just dumb kids, and that's their problem. It's just a joke to them. And in this community, parents have needs. I would take care of those charges for those kids. And it's really hurtful. And so I'm just curious, as a school district and a police department and as a board leader, what do you say to those families?
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. It's terrible, honestly. And when I say we can't talk about it, I don't mean that we don't talk about what happened, that we don't talk about, like, we pretend like it never happened, and then as a community, we just, you know, push down that side of it. Just the juvenile, like the court side and things like that is what we can't talk about for privacy reasons, right? So I think what we as a police department, the best thing we can say and do for your family and for these types of families is to bring justice, right? To get justice. That's the number one thing we can do, I think. I think anybody who's been through a traumatic experience, no matter what it is, if you get justice, that definitely brings some small amount of closure or the beginning of some closure maybe, right? And then I think something else that's important to mention. So one thing that I'm also a part of that I have been about a year now is I am part of a community group as a community liaison. I'm part of a community group called the Partners Against Hate. And we went to a summit last year and they talk a lot about these types of incidents. And we go over a lot of, we just had a meeting today and we go over a lot of incidents like these, like the Bonneville Elementary and that. And they have resources, and I can talk to you afterward that we can talk about. They have resources to help, and maybe I need to do a better job at getting that out to the community as a resource. So that is a great suggestion because I do need to do a better job, clearly. I'll talk more about that in my community council meetings, but that is something I'm a part of that like from the police side of it, I'm not like super involved because they have a lot of resources for the non-police side of it, right? Hate crimes are so difficult because there's a difference between hate speech, which is protected by the First Amendment, and there's a difference between hate crimes, which are completely illegal, right? And so what happened here was a hate crime. It was charged as a hate crime. It was enhanced as a hate crime. Hurtful words, things like that are not hate crimes there, but they are considered hate speech, right? And sometimes they can be indicators of a larger issue. And so that's where this group, the Partners Against Hate, that's where they come in and they have education for schools, and they do all these different kinds of things that they're getting involved with. I believe they've been involved with East High, and I'll talk with them and see if we can have them get involved with Clayton if they haven't, to bring more awareness to this issue. But they are working on that too, as well as like bringing awareness to like the harm and the hurt that this causes. Because I think, and what was your name? I'm sorry.
Tracy.
Tracy. What Tracy was saying with the social media, like it's so easy to talk crap behind a phone, right? When you're not in someone's face and just say whatever you want with zero repercussions. And so I think when it comes to like a real life situation, like vandalizing a school because you think it's just a joke, they don't understand how hurtful it is. Because, you know, when I was a kid, like when you talk crap, you got punched in the face, you know, which is awesome, I think, personally. So maybe not, I don't know, strike that. But, you know, when there was a lot of different repercussions when we were all growing up, right, for doing these same things, you dealt with it like a lot more. So I think that's part of the issue too. So I will work with the Partners Against Hate group, and I will do a better job with my community council, like putting out those resources. Because we are trying to do a better job of like tracking as a police department as well, of like tracking the hate speeches and the hate incidents. And that's not to say that we want to infringe on anyone's rights, because we do all have that right. But we want to deal with the precursors before it becomes the hate crime, right? And that's the goal, not to infringe on anyone's rights, but to deal with the precursors before it becomes a hate crime. So I'll work on it. Thank you very much.
One additional thing I want to bring up, if you have kids in the Salt Lake City School District, you're aware that we're having what's called a dignity index. We're teaching children how to treat each other, no matter if they agree or disagree about certain topics, in a civil manner. And that's a way to educate kids in a wide, diverse world, that you're going to find people that you don't necessarily agree with. You're going to be in situations where people come from different values, from different households, but how do you discuss ideas and how do you treat each other? And we as a community have to set a standard that we may not agree, but we will treat each other civilly, with decency, and with humanity. And that's what we're working on in the system. So you'll see those things coming home over the course of the year. We've done some introductory things last year with it. You've seen some media things about that, but it's about how do we treat each other and setting the standard for that treatment within our systems. The whole answer part.
Sorry.
Right. Great, we love these children. My husband Alex and I just moved to Yellowcrest less than 6 months ago. It's been a neighborhood we've just dreamed of, we've saved for, we just feel like we finally made it. And within these last 6 months, we have had laptops stolen, cars broken into. Last weekend, our car was egged and took off all the paint on our passenger door, we didn't get it off. Every weekend during the holidays, I put out, I had pumpkins along my fence, scarves on my fence, and I've gotten most money repurchase or put back together. And none of those things really matter to me, because yes, it can become costly, yes, it's annoying, but I have a question tonight about.
We'll start filing those reports.
We'll start filing the reports. But there's those things that can't be replaced, and one of the concerns we have, we live on the corner of the Freedom and Michigan Avenue. And we have seen beyond belief, to the point that I've actually sat out and filmed. I filmed the speeds at which people go down Michigan Avenue. I filmed and I sent it to Jan the other day. I sat with my children. I can't let my children go outside. I finally made it to neighborhood. We lost 2% interest rate. I'm like, what have we done? Because my children can't go outside. The stop sign there is nothing but a suggestion. Probably 1 in 40 cars will stop at it, and they go at such great speeds. And right there on that corner, in this house, we moved in, have been 4 other families with young children, and all of us as mothers really just stand up with our arms out. So I think my question would be where to send those type of, I've sent them twice to a website, so like PD, traffic violations, things like that, nothing back. We set out one of those slow down guys, neon, really obnoxious looking. And every night, I exaggerate not, my husband goes out before work and he puts them back together because it's become like a beacon of excitement for kids to run over with their car every night. So we stake him into the ground, but we still go out there and he's upside down and backwards and twisted to put them back together. But as a mother, it's just like, how can you see that? So that little sign of like, what you're doing could cost a life. That's more than my pumpkins, that's more than my decor, that's more than my laptop, it's a life. And these kids have no regard for it. And we're this summer I was a full-time job just acting as like a crossing guard of sorts. And have no answer back, just to know where to point those concerns to, or to get maybe a 4-way stop or one of those blinking signs brought over. I just couldn't able to reach anyone.
I will also add that I grew up in this neighborhood and I probably contributed to some, of these activities when I was little. So I guess I have an insider view, but, bringing up the corner of Michigan and Grand might be more beneficial to me than everyone else because I live right there, but I do think that it is a community focal point because between 19 and maybe 15th or 17th, and north of 13th South, that is the main thoroughway in the neighborhood. So everyone goes to and from, if they're going north, south to north and north to south, that's the thoroughway. So I might just like that. I'm sure technicalities you know about that, but it is the main thoroughway, and I think that focusing on that point would be beneficial for the community.
Thank you for bringing that up, and appreciate all the insight there. So I've been working with our transportation and our streets department on street calming initiatives across the city. And I will say that statistically, District 6 has the safest streets in the city. By far, out of 113 zones, our lowest one is number 57. So we have the safest streets in the city. That's what it says on the statistics. And that's how they base it on, and some different things. But I'm saying that just because we're not going to get something coming through the neighborhood to do some street calming. But there is also some quick reaction funding that I've been working with throughout the neighborhoods on doing different things that can support some methods to calm the streets down in different intersections. And we've done it throughout the city, and we've done it through parts of the district. Some are very simple, but it really requires, us to get with the neighbors in that small area, whether it's the intersection or the street, to come up with some type of solution. So the young lady right 2 seats in front of you, she'll get your email address and we can correspond and set something up with the three of us can have a conversation. We can bring the transportation guys in, and then we can see if we can come up with a solution to calm the traffic down in that area. And there's a number of different ways. Some are more expensive than others, some are a little bit longer, but we can try to come up with some type of a solution for that. And that's what I've done in a number of places. Again, I put it on a list and we're chipping away at different things, but yes, we can have that conversation, because you're right. And that goes back to the whole street side of the house. You know, we slowed the traffic down to 20. Yes, we didn't have a police officer at every intersection to watch everybody doing 20. But by just slowing the traffic down to 20, people will go slower. But it also is dependent on us, the neighborhoods, because a lot of I get a lot of complaints about street calming, and then I get a lot of complaints about why are we instituting street calming? Because they want, you know, our streets are built straight, and they want to go fast, and they're wide. So we got both sides of it, and some of us and a lot more are guilty of the ones that are speeding. So we have it ourselves about the community, but we can work on some street calming initiatives that are relatively quick and inexpensive. So thank you. So part of the idea is that we have the say the intersection lead that says, hey, I want to move forward on this intersection, some tree calming ideas. I work with that couple, that individual, and say, hey, gather some signatures, gather the people in your neighborhood to want to come and do this. And I go back and forth. I had a gentleman come to me at one intersection, I'm talking too long here. But one gentleman came to say, hey, I want street calming my street. Everyone likes it. I had transportation design it. We were about to have it in place. We were about to spend money on it. I said, can you get me the signatures of all those neighbors you wanted? The next morning, I had 20 calls from 20 different people telling me that was the stupidest idea in the world, and why the hell did I come out with that idea? I went, thank you very much. I'm gonna take that as under advisement, and I'm gonna get the signatures before I do any action. So
You want the signatures, then we send them.
well, we'll figure out what we want to do. We'll figure out what we want to do, and then we kind of look at, in this case, we didn't do any design. We'll figure out what we want to do, and we'll get some people together. Yeah, Councilor.
Yeah, I'll do a police answer to that one. That's okay.
I know some other questions in the law that.
Thought we're talking about speeding. All right, so, yeah, so speeding, for the police department side of it, so we have the motor unit is responsible for our speeding in the city. Again, remember, mountain to mountain, Bountiful to South Salt Lake. We got two squads of 5 officers and 2 sergeants. So they're responsible for the speeding issues in the city. So the best way to drive those resources, and I can't remember your name, ma'am, sorry, I didn't get your name, but what is your name? Isabel and Alex. So did you said you put in a request, was that to the SLCPD motors, do you know? Just do it, out me. Let's go. Yeah, so that's our motors, yeah, and so what happened, and that's you did the right thing, so you did nothing wrong. That's what I always suggest to my community. I will say, let's do this on the back end of it. If you haven't heard back in a while, it does. So again, there are 2 units. There's a day shift and afternoon. They cover the entire city. What you did though, it does help them understand like tip wise where the internal issues are in the city, because they're going to be on Sunnyside all the time. They're going to be on like 13th East all the time, but they're not going to be necessarily on the Grand in Michigan, right? Because that's kind of a tucked away street. They don't necessarily know. So it does help them say, oh, look, we've got an issue with stop signs and speeding on Michigan Avenue or the Grand. And so it's good for that. If you're not hearing back from them in like a couple of weeks, you can reach out to me and I can kind of reach out to them and kind of get the ball rolling a little bit quicker sometimes. But they do get to them. They're just crazy busy. And I think that we can do a better job of getting back to. So I'm going to try and find a way, because a lot of times he will send his officers out and I'll ask him, he'll be like, yeah, we were out there last week. And I'm like, well, bro, why don't you tell me, like, so I can tell them, like, so I'll try and find a better way of like, maybe him communicating with me directly and I can communicate with you all on when they do go out, because they do go out 100%. I utilize them many times. My community has utilized them many times. We just probably need to do a better job of like letting you know we came out there. So, but yeah, on the community side, on the police side, that's the best way to get motors into your neighborhood, like the smaller areas. Yeah.
It's not like you're just that. What's that? Right. Okay, not the machine. Okay, that was like, probably, that was maybe the worst experience. Yeah, that's probably didn't help the speed issue. Someone go from the back there?
I guess I have a question that brings it back to the hate speech and graffiti. And I know that there's certain things you're not able to talk about when I'm not going to ask about the suspects. Identities or occasions or any of that. But I'm curious whether you can speak to whether there's any understanding or notion in this as to whether it was essentially prank or whether there's actually sentiment behind the swastikas and the anti-LGBTQ graffiti on Bible. There's a huge difference, obviously. The effect on the community is the same. It was quite devastating, especially given the time period in which it took place. It didn't take place 2 years ago. It happened now during the war in the Middle East. And as we know, there's a tremendous hundreds-fold increase across the country in anti-Semitic acts, not just speech, but criminal acts. And so is that something you can speak to? Because I think it would be helpful to have an understanding whether or not it's prank, just, hey, let's just do this, or whether there is sentiment and those feelings actually lie within those suspects.
You repeat the question.
I know it's a very long question, but I distill it down.
Yeah, so essentially the question was, yeah, absolutely. So essentially the question was, the juveniles were involved with the hate speech and the hate vandalism here at the elementary school. Was it their true feelings or was it more of a prank? Is that about accurate? So to be 100% honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question, but I get the feeling that it was more on the prank side, just from like reading the reports and things like that. I wouldn't say that we've necessarily had, as bad as that incident was, I would call it somewhat isolated in the sense that we didn't have, 15 incidents right after that of homes, other things vandalized with the same kind of speech. So some of those smaller indicators to me, and I think this is just kind of my, I guess my opinion, which doesn't mean much. I just don't know the answer to the question. That's just the truth. But what I think is that it was more of a prank. And that's kind of what we were talking about a little bit before, where like kids are doing these things without thinking about like the actual repercussions of how much it can affect a community.
So we didn't see the same kind of vandalism, graffiti vandalism elsewhere in other schools or other buildings.
So there was a couple of other incidents through like there was the church that was vandalized and some of that was some hate speech. And then obviously the school here. And there's been, so, and you're not wrong. There's definitely been an uptick in hate crimes, hate speech, all these things since the war and all those things, like 100%. So I would say like for this area specific where the school and those particular suspects, I don't think it was necessarily, like their actual feelings on it. I think it was more prank, but I could be 100% wrong. I just don't know the answer to the question. I'm going to give it over to
Fair enough.
I can stress that we have not seen similar incidents to that degree in other schools. So we didn't see an uptick after that. But I do want parents to stress to their children that these type of situations are not only a legal issue, but they become a school issue, and there's a consequence that the schools enact. there is discipline that the schools can enact when we see these type of things taking place. It was on school property, it was pretty much, you have to look at restitution, you have to look at those type of things also. So we want to make sure we communicate to our kids that these pranks have repercussions, there are consequences for these things. And they can follow them records wise throughout their school careers, even into college. So let's be cognizant of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, you guys. I know we're focused a lot on the, teams themselves, and obviously there should be a lot of focus on mental health and building community and things like that. But these teams also have parents. And so I guess my question is, should we be doing more, and what can we be doing to reach out to parents of these children, that are probably in junior high and high school, because there's some type of, community, gathering event or something that we can organize to reach out to them so that they can have the resources that they need to help their kids not do these things. Because I feel like they bear responsibility as well. It's not just on these kids.
I'm gonna jump on that one too, share. Is, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's about what can we do to reach parents? And to make sure that the parents are aware of these things and the consequences, well, not consequences, I don't know the words in your mouth, but that these things are bad, and that keep parents engaged in these processes, correct? I'm school, so I'm gonna say PTA. You'll be surprised what business could be conducted through your PTAs and how you can engage parents through those mechanisms. It's just about showing up and being part of those things, getting those resources in place. But also, when you look at incrementally, supervision of kids. A lot of times we turn our kids loose, and I'm a member of that latchkey generation. You know, I remember being a kid growing up, there was a commercial that used to come on at 9 o'clock every night. Do you know where your kids are? And that was back in the 80s. But now, if we can form partnerships with parents and say, hey, who's supervising that friend group? I have to do it on the weekend. I'm not only an administrator in Salt Lake City School District, I'm a parent in Salt Lake City School District. My kids go to school in Salt Lake City. I just had one graduate from one of the high schools. The focus is, how can we share that time? How can we ensure that those kids are being supervised when they're not with their own parents? You know, neighborhood parent, community group parent, partner parent, and their communication needs.
Tracy, I'd love to hear from you.
If there is one thing as a school I wish we could do is get parents to behave the way we want them to. I could wave that magic wand. We offer a lot of, resources to parents, the school systems do. So many times, like when we hold a forum or a town hall or something, the people that show up aren't really the people we need to get this message to, and we're preaching to the choir. And that happens a lot. The best way, to kind of reach out to those parents who are really struggling and really need help. A lot of times it's our principal and our school counselors that know, who those kids are, and oftentimes do reach out to parents and, and pull them in and offer resources and help that is available at the school. So, and just, as neighbors, we need to get to know our neighbors too, and find out which kids are struggling and which parents may need help. So it's hard though, they're, our parents are adults, can't, always tell them what to do, but there are resources out there that are definitely available.
Is this on? Okay, not to change the subject, but back to the issue of fireworks and juvenile
access to fireworks. What can be done, what can we do as a community to encourage grocery store retailers within the no fireworks zone to put something up? I mean, Dan's is the biggest offender in Foothill, and their point of sale software system overrides that, asking for age ID. Harmon's, the boutique Harmon's that we have on 13th now, they have small firework profits and a couple of things like that. And yet, when you go to read a box of profits up at the pet stand, it asks for ID. I just feel that no fireworks in those retailers within the no fireworks zone would be more in keeping with our values as a neighborhood. I no longer talk of bans that sell fireworks and not be firing.
Let me add in just a couple of thoughts, because I really went into this today, the morning after Pioneer Day night. I went up to the school and collected all of the fireworks that had been shut off. And there was a garbage bag full of discharged fireworks, and the fire marshal got involved, and thank you for that. And he came over to my house and said, can I take those and use it as evidence? And he looked them over and he said, many of these are from out of state and they're illegal. So parents, talk about parents are buying them, unless kids are going out of state, I don't know.
So thank you for both comments, and I appreciate that, Jan, because I was gonna say something of that nature. The one thing, the city can look at our ordinance and see how we can, maybe, discourage or prohibit from stores in the retail area from selling fireworks. That we have to look at our ordinance, we have to look at the state ordinance, so, we don't get in trouble by the state pushing down on us and saying we can't prohibit. We can't, it's a double negative, we can't prohibit it, but we can look at that, so I appreciate that, and we'll look at that. But I also want to go to Jan's point and back to the comment about parents. The dangerous fireworks are not legal in Utah. They are legal in a place an hour and a half away from here, Evanston, and that's where they're getting those things. And then those are the dangerous ones. Those are the ones that are causing probably the most damage and the highest fire. So that goes to kids who are 16 and driving up there, buying them. Kids are 18, whatever, and or parents doing that. So that goes back to the conversation about the liability of parents and the parents' responsibility. I can't control that side of the house, and I actually can't even control the use of the house, because that again goes to parents. So we need to, as a community, also kind of, I don't want to use the term, well, I have to use the terms, I don't know what the third term is, police our own little neighborhood and say, hey, this is dangerous to all of us. And this is a danger to all of us. And it's not only a danger to us in a physical way, you can harm me, but it's also dangerous to your child, because if your child gets into that legal court system and that juvenile court system, there's a lot of serious repercussions for him, for his future. So that is a hard message to talk about, but that is a message that has to be talked at some time. Because a kid who gets in trouble like that way is a hard road ahead of them. So that's preaching to the choir here. But my first thing, we'll look at what we can do as a city. The neighbors need to look at what they can do on the legal side of the house. Those are the big ones.
Actually, just say, what can we do to encourage those retailers to just not put the fireworks out, not prohibit them? It would go a long way with me and probably many other people with my values. I'd want to shop there more if they didn't sell fireworks. If they didn't have much money on them, it's worth it for the danger to our neighborhood.
If we can, I can have a conversation with other council members and see what we can do there. But there's no, we can, recommend that, but the only thing we can really do would be a change in ordinance, but we can look into it, a conversation.
Can I give a suggestion, Dan? I want to give a real quick suggestion to what she said real quick. One suggestion I have for you maybe, and just right off the top of my dome here, is maybe get together like a community letter or something like that, where a bunch of people sign it, as many as you can get, kind of like what Dan was saying earlier, like a signed letter that you give to Dan's that says, hey, these are the issues we're having with fireworks being sold in the area. And this is how we feel about it, and this is how many people are not gonna shop at your store anymore if you continue to sell fireworks and put our homes in danger. Something like that, just a suggestion.
One thing I want to know. First for the defensive, I live in the area and how long are the
You said there are cameras up there right now? Is that what you're saying? And they're like the big trailer ones? Yeah, so I don't have, there is no like necessarily like a time frame on how long they stay. They're really just based on need throughout the city. And so I recently had to pull, if you still have cameras there, then that's awesome, because I had a lot of my cameras got pulled from all over, including here, because they had a bunch of operations they were doing that they needed them for. So I think the pull, like the big huge trailer cameras, I think we only have like maybe 20 or less. And which sounds like a lot, but not for the entire city. They're for the whole city. And so I don't know how long they're going to be there. It is a good question. I just don't know. They could be gone tomorrow, or they could stay another month. It's just based on need. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
families. I'm a grandparent and with the whole social media and just being glued to our phones, like I'm just as guilty as my grandkid. Okay, my 2-year-old grandson has his own iPad kind of thing too, and he teaches me. But all of my grandkids, and they're all in junior high and anyway, we're all on our phones all the time. Yeah. And what ideas do you have for families to kind of get, I mean, we do things like at the dinner table, no phones, stuff like that, but what are some ways we can, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I know exactly what you're saying. So my youngest is 19 now, and I said to her just the other day, I said, I am so sorry I failed you as a mother. I wish I would have taken more control over the phone. And she says, but Mom, that would have created its own set of problems. Because I feel like we have to do this as a whole entire society, because if you're the only teenager that isn't communicating on social media, then you're left out of everything, and you don't get invited to any parties, because that's just how we communicate with people. So, but a couple of things. A lot of the schools are looking at phone-free zones. I was just at a Granger High School last week, and from bell to bell, their phones are going in a magnetic pouch, and they don't get unlocked until the end of the school day. Is Waterford doing it too?
Waterford school-wide.
Yeah, there's several schools that are starting to do it, and that way, at least, you've got the school day, but they're going without that constant notifications and pinging and that happening. So that, I think we're gonna start seeing more and more schools. There's actually some legislation that's being proposed this year. So come January, when the legislative session starts, there could be legislation requiring schools to have cell phone policies, and the default will be no phones at all. Bell to bell, the entire school day will be the default, but then individual schools can, or school district can set their own policies. So that is one thing that's happening. But a couple of other things that I found out about more recently is just the parental controls on phones, making sure that you've set parental controls on there, and you can set what hours. I mean, you can set that they can only use, that their phone will actually only work during these hours, or certain apps will only work during these hours. Or they have to get permission to download an app. My kids, I had to get permission to download an app until they were like in college, so they'd be like in high school and they'd text me, Mom, you gotta approve this app, I need it for my math class, and we shouldn't be doing that anymore in our schools, but, there's a lot of apps out there that can give you control over the phones, and I think one of the laws that the legislature passed with kind of their social media packages to make it the default, so that when you get a phone for a kid, the parental controls are already on. And we'll see what happens. That's all, I think, part of that lawsuit that isn't, or that has stopped that bill from going forward. But because it's hard, figuring out parental controls isn't easy, and so sometimes we just don't do it. Taking the time to figure out those parental controls and looking into the different apps that will limit your kids' times. So that you're not just constantly fighting that battle, that you just set those limits right up front. With the kids, and then, you know, talk to them about, and there's lots of fun things. We play a lot of fun games as a family on the phone too. It's not all bad, but just teaching them to set limits and controls, and even if that's you having to actually put those parental controls on the phone. I think that's a step that needs to be taken. The one battle that I lost with my daughter is she took the phone into her room at night, and my older kids, we all leave our phone in the kitchen at night, all of us. And she kept bringing hers to her room, and we weren't strict enough on that, but anyway, just a few ideas.
I'd love to hear from you. I don't know if you're, you know, have the liberty right now to talk about this new legislation that's being proposed, that the legislature get our schools maybe ban phones, and that's some of the restraining out of the legislation. Do you want to address any of that and the impact it would have on schools?
I think Tracy kind of really talked about that in depth. The legislation will give some flexibility to the respective districts, but each individual school has a policy, well, procedure that they have regarding cell phones. With our middle schools right now from bell to bell, our kids are not allowed to have phones out. The flexibility is in our high schools right now, because we do have some teachers that use cell phones as an instructional tool, even though we're one-to-one. As a parent, no, and I'm gonna be honest, I had 2 girls and 2 boys. The girls tricked me into the 2 boys, because if I had the 2 boys first, I would only had 2 kids. But and I'm just saying, they were so obedient, they were easygoing, they followed instructions, I could trust them. My boys, I gotta go behind. Everything we tell them to do, we gotta go right behind and remind them that we told them to do it, and then remind them again that we told them to do it. So, and they're great kids, I love them, they love me, I hope. But in terms of cell phones, even as an educator, doing those parental controls, and I have them with my youngest that's at the middle school level, I really felt like I was going back to school. I had to sit there and go through step-by-step processes with that. And with some of our busier parents, I can tell you, I just don't see it happening. We have to find ways to support them through those endeavors, because it can be a very tedious process for them. In terms of the schools, there is a nationwide movement at this juncture to ban cell phones. New York, the largest school district in the nation, banned cell phones. Los Angeles is about to do it, ban cell phones. The disadvantages that we're finding, the pushback that we get from parents at East, I shouldn't say it East, y'all didn't hear that.
At all of our schools.
At all.
It's a pushback.
Yeah, the pushback that we get is really about parental control, being able to contact their kids. It's a safety concern for them. So on the school district side, we have to find a way to really relax those parents, to assuage those parents' fears in terms of things that might take place at schools. And I'm not even referencing the situation that just took place in Georgia. I'm just saying regular routine contact and being able to maintain that contact with your children.
Yeah, our teachers will tell you sometimes when they confiscated a phone, and they see all the notifications, it's the kids' parents that are texting them in the middle of class. So just, you know, at the very least, don't text your kids during class.
My bad.
Yeah, I know. Guilty.
Really quick, I think we're gonna, if you don't mind, we're gonna put the computer back here, and kind of maybe wrap this down, but Bill, can you?
It's just a quick question. I also live in the market. I was wondering, do we teach statistics? Do we teach statistics on vigilantism, like citizens,
Taking matters in their own hands.
Exactly, yeah. I just wonder if that is a bit of a balance measure to, obviously, when I was young, a long time ago, like, if you got a fender bender, cops always, came. And that's changed, I know, because of budgets and things like that. You've got to put people where the worst problems are. But I just wonder if, because I've seen it around my neighborhood where, people have actually someone shot someone on my street a few years ago because they kept breaking into their house. So, yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, so I guess that's a pretty broad term, because if someone broke in my house, I'd probably get shot down, so it just depends, right? Like, it's just a broad term, but realistically,
Obviously.
yeah, so what happens is realistically, is we take it as a criminal basis, right? So let's use that example. If someone does break into your house and you shoot them, what happens, right? You could get arrested that night, depending on how you justify and what the, what the circumstances are, all those things, right? So, obviously, we're gonna respond on a call like that, serious, right? Or let's break it down even something less serious. Let's take someone basically has to be punched in the face and hold them down to the prosecutor. I don't personally consider that vigilantism, right? I just consider that holding someone down to the police there to get every right to protect your house, your person, everything like that, right? So all those things come into play when we're talking about that. Like, is it reasonable? Is it, so here's what wouldn't be reasonable, right? Let's say you had a lot of people stealing bikes from your neighborhood. And you go out and you see someone walking down the street with a bike, and you go over and punch them in the face and take a bike from them. Well, you've not committed a robbery, right? You have, not you, lucky, but the person has now committed a robbery and trying to be a vigilante, right? And that's probably what you're more talking about.
Unless it's their bike.
Yeah, you gotta be sure.
Yeah.
Because if you're wrong, you just committed a robbery, and you go to jail for a felony. So yes, I'm all for, like, if you know it's your bike and you can get it back and you can safely do it, then by all means, we still want to be called. But generally I say, like, call the police and just try and keep an eye on the suspect and, maybe follow from a distance, whatever you need to do. Because I certainly don't want anybody to get hurt on a bike or killed on a bike, it's just not worth that. But when it comes to vigilantism, I think what you're saying, we will track it like if it's a crime per se. Rises to the level of crime, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so all that actually is what she is.
We kind of maybe take a little bit beyond vigilantes and realize that we don't, the police department does not want you to be the police officer. We don't want you to, if there's someone stealing something like that, we don't want you to be the hero to try to stop that person. Call the police, write down his license plates, get the details. We're not looking for you to be the police officer. The property is far less valuable than your life. And I don't want you to get hurt. And that's why some people say, oh, I want to have something, community patrols. That's the danger of that is you're not the police officer. Detective Fowles is trained. The police officers are trained. Report it. And I sometimes would say, don't even take a film. I've talked with Jan about this. Sometimes you don't even want to film because if you're film it, they're gonna come back at you. So I don't want you to put your life in danger for something that's property. If you get the details, call the police and report that side of the house. So be careful on that end of it. So thank you very much. I
We
appreciate
need
it.
to wrap up. We thank you so much. Let's give a big, huge hand. Terrific. And what I'm taking away, and I don't know if you're taking the same thing away, is we need to keep the dialogue going and not let this drop. I did talk with Rachel Day, who's on our board, to maybe start a task force, a community task force that would pick up the ball and keep this going in terms of where do we go from here? Rather than just have a discussion, go home, and then the same thing keeps repeating over again. What can we do to step in place? You've asked some great questions tonight, and I think our panel has offered some wonderful solutions already. I like what I'm hearing from our police department and from all of our panelists tonight about proactive things that we can do. But let's keep it going, and we will find another opportunity in a community setting to bring this up again and keep it going and have some of maybe our panelists come back. But thank you, have a great evening, and good night. Thank you.